objection to the admission of these documents?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what is that, sir?
Under U.S. Supreme Court rules regarding scientific evidence, it must meet specific criteria, otherwise it's considered scientific hearsay and cannot be admitted into evidence. The checklist is not an engineering checklist. It is not signed under the penalty of perjury, or it doesn't claim to be a certification document, so that is not valid. Also, Missouri state law has a law that says any system regarding public safety must be either done by or supervised by a professional licensed engineer. The stamp must be on each of the documents. None of the documents have a professional engineering stamp.
Do you have that law with you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right, very good. So I'll take this with the case, and I'll look up those sections of the statutes before I would rule on everything.
Okay, Your Honor.
Okay. Anything else that you
Yes.
want to raise with regard?
I have an engineering degree from the ABET accredited school and ABET accredited program. So I am an accredited engineer with 20 years IT embedded system experience.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of uniquely qualified to testify as to the, excuse the word, shoddy workmanship of the photo speed camera setup over there.
Okay, that's very good, and I will take notice of your degree and your qualification specifically. And you know, I know you have some very specific objections to the foundation of these things. And I truly am interested in hearing what you feel are the flaws in the documents as to attesting to the accuracy of the operation. Which one are we looking at? What page?
I guess it's the third page where it says B&W sensors.
Right, at the top?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd also worked for Boeing, where I work closely with the calibration lab.
I may go, just tell me what's wrong.
What is missing here is, first of all, after every line item, there should be an initial that the person performed this task, and he should be writing down the values that he received.
Okay. So everyone should have a initial
That the test
and the
was performed.
value or the reading that was received.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the expected reading.
Okay, reading.
And,
Okay, what else?
There's a variety of floppy errors, such as if you look on the second page under parameters, it says pipeline length is 160. It doesn't say if it's inches, feet, furlongs, miles, centars. The units are left off.
No units. Okay.
They used LiDAR, which is not an accepted calibration method, to calibrate this system. And instead of writing down that LiDAR gave this and the system gave this, they just said, well, if it's off this direction, we're going to fix it. If it's off this direction, it's fine. We're not going to note any variances either way. So we don't know if it was off, if it was on, if it was high, if it was low. We have no idea how accurate this system is because they don't record it.
Well, here's what I would say to that, and I understand what your argument is, but if the LiDAR says it's the same or lower, aren't you giving the benefit of the doubt to the driver? Like, so let's say a radar gun. The radar gun is clocking people at 40 miles an hour. Their actual speed may be 42 miles an hour, but it's reading 40, so it's the same or lower. So isn't that what they're saying in this report, that it's the same or lower than LiDAR, the speed?
See, here's the problem with that. If the LiDAR is incorrect, if that's inaccurate, and let's say it's 5 miles an hour high, and he goes, oh, it's wrong. So he bumps it up 5 miles an hour. It now says somebody doing 20 miles an hour is doing 25.
Okay, so you're saying you go one step back and say who tested the LiDAR? Okay, all right, I understand your argument there. I think we'll stick those back.
As you heard time and time again today, everybody was complaining the flashing red or the flashing yellow lights were not flashing. This does not have any tests for the settings of the yellow lights, when they were flashing, whether they were operational. Person after person after person called that, and we have no evidence here either on the camera or in these documents, that it was functional on the day of the citation.
Okay. Anything else?
There's a serious flaw that tells me that an engineer never breathed on this page.
Okay.
And that is, anybody who took 10th, 11th grade geometry knows that the hypotenuse is always longer than the leg. The camera measures the hypotenuse. The person doing the physical measurement on the ground is measuring the leg. And as the distance gets longer, the difference between the hypotenuse and the leg changes. And yet, they're claiming here at 0.6818, I figured that to be about 100th of a millimeter of accuracy, and they're making these wild claims of accuracy that cannot be supported. The camera could not, that they use on that cannot possibly be that accurate. Yes, I have, I think it's on the document that I gave you, one of the appendices show that at different distances, I assume a 15-foot camera, that there's a difference in the distances on the hypotenuse, the range
Here you go,
changes.
I see it.
To make clear, I'm being charged because somebody drove in my car. The allegation is 30 miles an hour in a 20 zone.
Right.
Okay. That it's a violation of public safety, not a speeding ticket.
Right, civil.
Okay. There were 3 Missouri appeals court rulings that I found that said that there are 2 requirements for there to be a violation of public safety. That's St. Charles Sign versus St. Charles County, Bez Aid Yiv versus City of St. Louis, and City of Greenridge versus Preisel. In all 3 cases, Missouri appeals courts said that for the public safety and the ordinance to be a valid violation, for me to be guilty, you must show that there was actually a threat to public safety. The video will not show pedestrians walking by who were endangered by somebody driving 30 miles an hour instead of 20. Well, you really have to show, if nobody's for blocks around, it's not a violation of public safety.
Well, I disagree with you.
Okay,
Because,
that's fine.
well, you know, it's in the school zone and the park zone. So obviously there's a public safety issue.
Right here it says, for school zones, the speed limit for the school zone shall be established, blah, 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 according to the engineering policy guide. St. Anne didn't do that, so they didn't do the engineering. When the school speed limit is set, signal is installed, flashes shall be installed with signing. The flash is only activated when school speed limit applies. The speed limit should only be active during time when children are likely to be present. Okay, that is, I think you would find to be a reasonable assertion.
There's also a park.
Okay, and here they said that the reasonable enforcement is for work zones, travel safe zones, and school zones. They did not consider park zones or anything else. If it's determined by MoDOT that your ordinance is primarily for revenue generating, then it must be invalidated and the city must go back to MoDOT to get it certified.
Okay, when does MoDOT determine that?
Automated enforcement on the state highway system, although the department does not own it, but citizens express concerns about inconsistencies in application. And somewhere in here, it says,
Is there somewhere in that document that says that the Missouri Department of Transportation has determined that Ashby Road is not an appropriate not an appropriate place to enforce the speed? And I guess the answer to that question is no, because if that were the case, it would be taken down.
and you've not accepted, does say that, but you've not accepted my argument that it talks about the system, much less refuted. This thing right here, it says that the professional engineer reviewed the theory behind it. He didn't review the design, he didn't review the cameras, he didn't review the programming. There's no evidence that anybody qualified to certify that system breathed on any part of it. There's no evidence that a CMMI certified programmer wrote the code or supervised the code. There's no evidence that an engineer did the measurements to make sure that they're accurate. There was just no engineering done, and that is required by Missouri revised statutes. So, and I believe that there's lots of facts and evidence here. It's well known in engineering and science that what you see is the worst kind of evidence. For instance, we see this thing right here, and we'll all argue that it's solid, but a scientist will tell you it's a lowering mass of electrons, that there's more space in there than there is solid. And actually, that scientist is correct. So photographic evidence can be very misleading, especially when you're using it for measurements. Nobody's certifying that the system is properly installed. Nobody's certifying that it's accurate. There's no certifying independent agency.
I think you've noted all that stuff, and I understand what you're arguing.
And there was one more point. It said independent police officer on the document. If they said St. Anne police officer, I'd accept that. The St. Anne police officer is not an independent police officer. That's just one more of many errors, sloppiness. If they got St. Louis County police officer to review it, that would be independent. I hope you understand.
Well, they write tickets all the time.
If they did not include the word independent.
Okay, fair enough. Go ahead.
And so there's just all kinds of serious flaws with this, where if I did this in my sophomore year of college, or if I walked into a design review meeting, I'd walk out of there into my manager's office, and if I kept my job, I'd definitely get a chewing out for being so sloppy.
If I would be very concerned about that if they had, and I think I should be aware of that, just as I should be aware of the many things that you pointed out about the engineering flaws of this thing. Yeah, I should be aware of those too. And so, I'm not doing it disrespectfully to you. I'm just telling you, if that was the case, I'd have to take a look at it. I'm here to make a ruling on whether or not somebody's guilty or not guilty. I think the evidence that you brought with you today is very helpful in making those determinations and taking a look at these things, and I'll make a ruling based upon all the things that you brought up to me today. If you have anything else that you want to say, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to take them.
Presented a compelling case.
Now, are you still at the same address, Mr. Hyatt?
23. The prosecutor just offered to dismiss it, and I thanked him and I respectfully declined, telling him that I've spent many hours on this and I want to go to court. I expect the court, there's a strong perception that the court is biased. I believe the court is biased, and so I expect to be convicted, but I will appeal to Clayton.
Well, why didn't the judge dismiss your case? Why did the prosecutor come in here off to the side, away from the $10,000 in revenue sitting in the courtroom?
The prosecutors will discuss it with you offline. The perception of bias is clearly demonstrated by the giant poster from the vendor in the courtroom. Why does the court allow marketing material from the vendor to be presented in the courtroom? There's actually a very bogus claim that there is a signature by a professional engineer in the bottom right corner, but the professional engineer is not certifying the poster is correct or the system is correct. If you read carefully, you'll find out that he's claiming the theory is correct. The theory is great. Practice is what we're discussing here. And because this is not, as the judge repeatedly said, this is not a speeding ticket. This is a violation of public safety, but there is almost never public on that road when they're issuing citations on July 31st at noon. At this one, which was almost 5 p.m. in the middle of the week, there's no pedestrians present. Who is being endangered where it's 30 miles an hour, 100 yards of 20 miles an hour, and then it's 30 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
Also, variable speed limits are strongly discouraged by the U.S. Department of Transportation's MUTCD. They're generally found to be invalid except in very unique situations. The court's claiming that it's not a school zone would invalidate one of those exclusions.